And welcome. I am Jeff Sleed, sitting in for my mom, Judy, who is recovering from a minor injury, we'll say. So I'm in the host seat today, and I am very glad to be joined by Paul Monte, the general manager and CEO of Gurneys Inn, who, Paul, a lot of people know Gurneys Inn, but don't know the man behind Gurneys Inn. So why don't you give us a little introduction on who you are and how you got started in that business?
Sure, Jeff, happy to. I'm sorry to hear about your mom, first of all, and I do wish her a speedy recovery. But I'm glad I got to meet you today.
Absolutely.
So, this is very nice. But Gurneys Inn has been around since 1926, so that's why a lot of people know about it. My family got involved in 1956 when my uncle, Nick Monte, purchased the property from Mrs. Gurney. And he operated and expanded the small country inn that it was at the time. And in 1967, I believe it was, or 68, Nick was hit by a car and was injured. So he couldn't do what he wanted to do and couldn't carry out his everyday activities as the owner of the inn. So he called my father, who was running a restaurant in Brooklyn that my family owned. And that was Monte's Venetian Room, actually, which was started in 1906 by my grandfather. So we have a long history in hospitality. So he called my father and asked him to come out and help him for the summer while he recovered. So my father said, okay, and by the end of the summer, he had fallen in love with the area, and he called my mother and said, put the house on the market in Queens, and we're going to move out to Montauk.
Wow.
So we moved to Montauk in 1968, and myself and my brother and three sisters, and we grew up out in Montauk. We grew up working at Gurneys, and for most of my teenage years, I worked at Gurneys or at the Deep Hollow Ranch, which we also owned for a period of time. And my lifeblood, I guess, is hospitality and working in the hotel, restaurant, and hospitality business. I went to college for that down in Fort Lauderdale.
It's a nice place to learn about stuff, huh?
It was a great place to go to school. A good place to be for anything.
I guess so.
Especially in the 70s. So had a good time down there, but learned and graduated magna cum laude. So finished up there, came back to Montauk, ready to go to work at Gurneys. But at that time, there was an opportunity at what is now the Surf Lodge. It was the Lakeside Inn at the time. Mm-hmm. And the property was being rented by Gurneys for employee housing. And the owner of the property didn't want to run the restaurant any longer. So he was willing to practically give it away to someone to run. So I figured, well, that's a good little start for me. So I jumped in there, I took it over. I think my rent was $3,000 a year at that time.
Wow.
And I went in and I opened a little restaurant, but the mainstay there was my nightclub. And Montauk really didn't have a nightclub at that time.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And the history of that property is that it really was a night spot with entertainment for many, many years before that. So I went in, opened it up, and it was a success right from day one. I kind of ran the restaurant with a few different flavors for several years, but then opted to lease that section of it out and just concentrate on the nightclub. And for 10 years, we had a very good run there. It was known as The Place.
Yeah.
And we did very, very well there. It was a popular spot. And during that time, I dabbled in some other things. I also had several pizzerias in the area. The one opposite Kmart was ours when we converted it, my partner and I, from a bicycle store to a pizzeria.
Natural move.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yep, yep. And we never even used bicycles to deliver after that. but that was a success. We ran that for several years and sold it. We had another pizzeria in East Hampton on Newtown Lane where Fiero's is. Mm-hmm. We actually sold it to the Fiero family when we were ready to get out. And we also ran the Main Beach concession down in the pavilion at Main Beach for a season. So those were some small things that I dabbled in while I was running the place. And then towards the end of the run at the place, around 1987, my manager from the place and I partnered up and we took over what is now the Sloppy Tuna.
You're not kidding when you say you had dabble. I mean, more than dabbling. I mean, you're basically running Montauk.
Yeah,
it sounds
well,
like.
for 10 years, I was on a pretty fast track, all out here in the Hamptons and in the restaurant and nightclub business. So it was a great learning experience for me. I mean, I was very successful, but I certainly made mistakes. And, you know, I like to consider that period of time in my life as my master's degree
Right.
in business.
Right.
You know, I learned what you do that works, and I learned what you do that doesn't work. So it was a great time. And then towards the end of the 80s, I believe it was 1989 or so, my mom fell ill with cancer. My father wanted to spend more time with her, so he asked me if I would come back and work at Gurneys and help, you know, as they went through that difficult time. So I said, okay. At that time, I was married and I had 2 children at the time, and the nightclub business was getting a little old for me. So I said, okay, it's more year-round, it's more stable, it's a better future for my family. So I got involved at the end of 1989, and I've been there ever since.
So we're talking about basically nearly 25 years of
Yep.
you
Yep.
being the CEO and the general manager of Gurneys Inn, one of the most popular places in you know, the East End of Long Island.
Yep. Yep.
That's a nice little run, to
Yeah,
say the
it's
least.
not bad at all. Not bad at all.
You have not only people who, like you said, have the experience who are local, out of state, but around the globe. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yep.
pretty good when you consider, you know, here you are in Montauk, and you have people coming from other countries just to stay at your place.
Sure.
Tell me about the beach renovations that are going on.
Okay, well, as everybody knows, Superstorm Sandy occurred at the end of October last year, and it was devastating to many parts of Long Island. Fortunately, the East End did not receive the same wallop that everybody else did. However, our beaches did take quite a hit.
Yeah.
And the beach at Gurneys got beat up pretty good. We're in the final stages of finishing up our work over there and rebuilding our dunes, and we brought in about 3,500 yards of sand to rebuild it, and we'll replant the beach grass. And the beach is looking pretty good now. Mother
So-
Nature is also bringing back some sand since then.
Nice of her to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you
well,
have to make a special request for that? Or when you have
she's very good, actually. She's sort of an Indian giver. She giveth and she taketh away, but she never takes it away forever, so it's okay.
And it's good because the season is upon us now, where I guess, you know, you'd be busier than ever.
Yep.
And just in time, the renovations seem to be happening just at the right time for you guys and your business.
Exactly. Then the next 4 weeks are when we have to finish up everything that we're doing, so that by the beginning of May, we're ready to take on all the business that's coming in. In Europe, thalasso is an everyday word. Thalasso means utilizing the seawater in treatments, in cooking, in skin products, in all types of areas to get the benefit of the minerals of the sea into our bodies.
Right.
And our facility does that. We have a seawater well, and we pump the seawater up from beneath the beach. We filter it. We use it in our Roman baths, our swimming pool, our thalasso tubs, which are underwater massage tubs where you sit in them and you get massaged with a high-pressure hose in this tub full of seawater. And the
I'm getting
benefits...
relaxed just thinking about it.
Exactly. The benefits of it are that the mineral composition of seawater is the same as blood plasma. And the osmosis that occurs is detoxifying as well as remineralizing our bodies. So whether it's the seawater or a seaweed-based lotion or a seaweed sea salt scrub or facial materials and treatments using seaweed-based plants and lotions, all of those things are not only beneficial from a physical aspect and the looks, but they also reinvigorate our insides and really rejuvenate us.
So you were mentioning before we went on with Montauk, and there are some other issues with the beach. Can
Yes,
you expound on
actually,
that a little bit?
I'm happy to mention that. The beaches in our downtown area got hit very hard with the storm. And they have been, over the past 2 or 3 years, feeling the impact of several of the nor'easters and some of the other storms that we've had. And they haven't been rejuvenating themselves very well. So if you know downtown Montauk, you know that the the motels basically line the beach in downtown Montauk. And they are our protection to keep the water back from the rest of the town.
Right.
Because the downtown area of Montauk is actually very low. I think it's about 2 feet above sea level. So if our dune or any of those motels are gone, the ocean in a storm is just going to come right through the whole town. So what we're trying to do now is work with our federal and state and county and town officials to get some of the relief money that's been granted to rebuild the beach in downtown Montauk and protect all of those businesses as well as the whole downtown area and the community of Montauk.
Is that something, I'm not very politically aware, is that something that a lot of the people in Montauk are aware of, or is that something that you think the word needs to get out, so to speak?
Well, I think plenty of people are aware of it, but the word needs to get out some more, definitely, so that the politicians can hear from more of the residents and get a feeling for the importance of the project.
And it's not just, somebody who has a business there. I mean, you're talking about an entire community in town.
Absolutely. There are several areas that are our weak points, really, and in a major storm, without the protections of the dune or the buildings that are there, Montauk could actually become islands. We had a small breach during Sandy that occurred at the westernmost border of Hither Hill State Park, and the water was actually flowing across Napeak Stretch for a short period of time.
Wow.
Fortunately, the supervisor sent in bulldozers and closed up that breach and stopped it. But that's one point. Then there's another point at the beginning of downtown Montauk, where if the dune is breached, the water will come across the highway into Fort Pond, and from Fort Pond into Fort Pond Bay, so we'll be disconnected at that point. And then out by Ditch Plains is another area where the water could come through if the dune is not protected and built correctly, and go right on into Lake Montauk and then out into the Sound. So we're vulnerable in Montauk right now, and we're depending upon our elected officials to get us the money that we need to build that engineered beach and to keep us viable for the next 40 to 50 years.
How long would something like that, if the ball got rolling, how long would a project like that take to complete, do you think?
Well, we're being told that optimistically it could happen within 12 to 18 months.
That quickly?
Yeah, well, because of the urgency that's been created by the storm.
Right.
And the fact that, more storms could come at any time, and we're vulnerable at this time.
Right.
So it's not a situation like it may have been in the past where, the beach got a little bit of erosion and maybe somewhere down the road we'll deal with that. We don't have that luxury of time anymore.
Right. But that being said, people who want to come and stay with you, or anybody who is visiting Montauk, shouldn't feel like they have anything really major to worry about.
No, not at all. Not at all. The property owners have done a nice job of replenishing their own beaches at their own expense. At Gurneys Inn, we've done it. In downtown Montauk, the Royal Atlantic spends hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Ocean, is that the Ocean Beach next door, I believe, does the same thing. And there are several of the hotels and motels along the beach that do the same thing. So there are beaches right now, but it's not an engineered beach as the Army Corps of Engineers would build, which is a beach that would withstand, say, a 40 or 50-year storm that's going to go out another 200 or 300 feet further than what's there now, and actually create a dune that would be a buffer for a serious storm.
How do you plan for something like that? Because, when Sandy hit, you had no way of knowing how devastating it was going to be. I mean, is there any way of insulating yourself in a way where you're not going to be, I don't want to say affected, but protected by Mother Nature, who at this point would be taking a little more than she's giving?
Well, I could speak for Gurneys, and I could speak for the community, I guess. Being the president of the Montauk Chamber of Commerce, so I'm involved with a lot of the community efforts as well. At Gurneys, we do what we can to keep our beach built up by bringing in sand if we need to, and making sure that our dunes are protected with beach grass and snow fencing, and use the wind to capture the sand as much as we can. So we try to keep that buffer up as well as we can. And then in terms of emergency planning, at Gurneys, we certainly have all of those pieces in place. We've got 3 generators on the property. We have a staff that's trained and that goes through emergency preparedness on a regular basis. And we've got safety plans and equipment on hand and everything else. So
Right.
we are pretty much a self-contained and self-sufficient organization. As far as the community of Montauk, there were some areas of preparedness that didn't seem as up to par as they should have been last time. And in response to that, the Montauk Chamber and the concerned citizens of Montauk groups are getting together, and they're actually holding a FEMA-sponsored seminar for government workers as well as the community. I believe that's going to happen April 13th or something like that, where we will learn a little bit more about that. Montauk Fire Department is also doing something, I believe the same week, to train people to be Red Cross volunteers. So when we have to open up shelters, we'll have volunteers on hand that will know what they need to do. So and they're also putting in a generator over at the Montauk Playhouse, so we'll have an additional shelter with self-sufficient power in the event of a problem.
When people think of Montauk, they think a lot of times of the nightlife and the atmosphere there. How does Gurneys fit into that whole picture?
Well, we are our audience, I guess, or our clientele is a little bit more of a mature clientele. So we're not a memory motel or a sloppy tuna type of establishment.
Right.
However, we do like to have fun, and we do have live entertainment. We have beach parties all summer long with
What's
live
an
music.
example of what kind of live music would you have? Is it
Oh,
like
you name it.
oldies or-
Everything from rock and roll to, we have a Rolling Stones cover band that comes in and plays. We have some rhythm and blues groups that come in and play. We have some local favorites that play everything from...
Have you ever had the Dan Bailey tribe there?
Oh,
Do you
sure,
know? Yeah?
sure. Dan is great. We
Yeah.
love Dan.
Good
Yep,
friend
we
of
had
mine.
him several times last summer.
Great.
And Dan always draws a crowd.
Yeah, always.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to give them a plug. I think
I've been
they're-
following his travels on Facebook as
That's
he's gone
great.
through Brazil and South
Yeah.
America. And yeah, Dan is a great guy. But yeah, all types of music, and we like to have a good time.
Do you have a specific kind of, you said a mature, and I guess, but that's not to say that if somebody were, in their early 20s or mid-20s and wanted to, spend a nice weekend or a few days?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of things there for the younger demographic as well. I would say, one of the things that we do a series of brunches with a group out of New York, and they're called day and night brunches. And this is a group that has a following and a clientele of 20s to 30s, highly affluent individuals that like to get together and have a great time.
Right.
And they do it at several locations in New York City during the winter, and then they'll come out and they'll do the holiday brunches at Gurneys in the summertime. And these are champagne popping, music playing, dancing on the tables kind of parties. So you can certainly have a good time like that if you're in the younger demographic. But for the most part, our demographic is probably in the late 20s, early 30s to mid-50s. Unfortunate that the Jersey Shore got as devastated as they did, but we expect that some of the metro crowd that would normally go to the Jersey Shore
Right.
may decide to come out into the Montauk area this summer.
Do you think that the winter being as rough as it was here will impact your business over the summer or the season because it's been so snowy in this area, or does that not have anything to do with it?
My gut tells me that people are getting a little bit of cabin fever right now. They've spent the winter putting their lives back together, whether it be their homes were damaged or their business was damaged or they had some type of financial impact from the storm. So they've spent the winter doing that. The weather has not been kind. It's not been a winter where you want to go out and
Right.
enjoy the weather.
It's snowing
So-
in March still. I think.
Yeah, exactly. So other than those who went up to the mountains and enjoyed a great ski season, and kudos to them because the mountains certainly have gotten beaten up over the past few years with no snow. But I think people are ready to go out and enjoy themselves this summer. So we're expecting that we'll see the benefit of that as well.
Do you try to do anything specific to cater to people? We were talking about the bakery early, and I know we're just about out of time, but I'm just thinking,
Wow, already?
already, it goes so fast,
It does
right?
go fast.
To entice people because of the food, for example.
Certainly.
From an ecological standpoint, where you're explaining about the water before, and now from a health initiative, it seems
Yep,
like you guys
yep.
have everything covered. That's just wonderful.
We try to do a little bit of everything at Gurneys.
And obviously doing very, very well with it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on the show and
Thank you, Jeff.
enduring me for sitting in for my mom.
Yeah, my best to your mom.
I certainly will. Paul Monte, the General Manager and CEO of Gurneys Inn. Thank you so much for being our guest this week.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.